Welcome, everyone. Really appreciate you all being here tonight for our first session of Amplify DU, our winter 2025 session. My name is Hayden Ron. I am a graduate of the Oregon chapter in 2016. I currently serve the Delta Upsilon staff as the Senior Director of Fraternity Growth. I oversee our growth team, which includes our leadership consultants, Sam Kleeman and Josh Smith, both from our Miami chapter. And with our team, we oversee expansion, recruitment programming, such as this one, and Amplify DU, recruitment coaching, all of those pieces when it comes to the growth of Delta Upsilon across North America. Great to see some familiar names and faces. I'm sure Josh and Sam are seeing some familiar faces and names, which is great. Thank you for alumni and advisors for being on. And I'm really excited to be doing Amplify DU. A little back kind of story of the creation of Amplify. Amplify it was created in 2021 as a result of um, the pandemic and helping chapters understand how to recruit virtually or in different capacities depending on where their campuses were, while also taking advantage of the summer where we have a lot of time to provide really in-depth programming. It has transformed and evolved to be a twice a year program, one in the winter, obviously, as most of you are either new to your positions or we're getting back into the semester, in addition to the summer programming, which is a little bit more in depth. The winter programming, we have 3 sessions. You'll see the first one tonight and the next 2 Wednesdays, and the summer programming a little bit longer. So a lot of opportunity to participate and amplify both this month, but then also as we look ahead into the summer months leading into fall recruitment. So as mentioned, and as you've seen in emails, and as you were registering for the program. We've got 3 different sessions for Amplify. Obviously, the first one tonight talking about understanding successful tactics when it comes to recruitment. The next 2 sessions will build off of each other and build off of this one. The next one talking about how to create a successful and smart and intentional recruitment plan. And that last session talking about how are we implementing that as VPs of recruitment, recruitment chairs, executive board officers. Before we jump into the session tonight, just a couple housekeeping pieces. Josh and Sam are with me. They are going to keep an eye on the chat just in case I'm not seeing anything. Feel free to put your questions in there. There will be a time at the very end for some questions as well. But at any point you have a question, feel free to throw that in the chat and we'll get around to it, whether Josh and Sam are answering that specifically in the chat or we're answering that here, either myself, Josh, or Sam. The second piece, as well, is this is being recorded, so this will be sent out to anyone who's registered to be shared, as well as all our other VPs of recruitment. They'll have access to it, so you don't necessarily have to feel like if somebody's missing this, they can't see it. We'll get this sent out to you all so you can share that with your chapters or others who you feel would need to see this session. And then the last piece is Josh and Sam throughout the night are going to be asking certain questions within the chat depending on what tactic we're talking about. We would love to get you all's feedback in that chat and get your all ideas and what your all thoughts are. It's going to help just the engagement piece there as we continue on throughout the evening. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started on what we're going to be talking about tonight. And so here's what really we're going to be focusing on. We are going to be focusing on 10 successful recruitment tactic and breaking down each of those 10 throughout the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour. Now, I will mention that these are not necessarily the only 10 successful recruitment tactics that there are. These are, as I was preparing Amplify for this winter session specifically, 10 of probably the biggest priorities that I'm seeing over the course of the last couple months since returning to staff. And also, I think that are really helpful as we're thinking about individuals who might be new to the role, who are thinking about spring recruitment and how do I best go be successful or have the potential for success moving forward. So again, not the only 10 that there are. These will ebb and flow. Some chapters, are really, really strong in some of these tactics. You may look at it and say, oh, great, I need to, enhance what that looks like there. So again, giving us that opportunity to really focus on these 10 tonight. And again, we'll go one by one talking about why is that important? What does that look like? And why is that a tactic that's going to lead for the potential for success? So before we jump into tactic number one, do also want to share this quote that I think is incredibly important as we're thinking about recruitment. So great recruitment is about creating an environment where potential new members or potential members feel like they belong before they even join, right? So we're wanting to really create this environment that's allowing for somebody who's thinking about joining Delta Upsilon on your campus. They feel as though they want to join and they actually belong within this group. And we'll talk throughout the night about what that looks like and how each of those tactics allow for you all to create that environment for that potential member. All right. So tactic number one, 365 recruitment. If you have heard or been on a session with me or I facilitated a session at an educational program or we've done recruitment coaching, you will know that this is the first thing I talk about in every single one of my sessions because it's incredibly important to how we be successful when it comes to recruitment. 365 recruitment is this idea that every single day we are doing something to go recruit the next member of Delta Upsilon on our campus. That doesn't necessarily mean that every single day we're providing a bid. That doesn't mean that every single day we are having a pinning ceremony. It doesn't mean that every single day we are necessarily doing outreach to a potential new member. It just means every single day we are doing something that is going to help enhance the relationships we're looking to provide and build with potential new members, but also help us reach our goals as a chapter when it comes to bringing in both the quality and quantity of individuals that our chapter is needing and wanting moving forward. 365 recruitment gets us out of this mindset that recruitment is only a 2 week period in the fall or a 1 week period in the spring. It's this mindset that it's every single day. That might look like we're having a recruitment meeting talking about what our formal recruitment activities are going to look like. That might look like cleaning up our names list to ensure that we have an accurate contact list and we know who's being reached out to and what does that look like. That might look like an informal dinner or trip to the gym or study session in which we're inviting potential new members. That can happen during recruitment in the fall, during recruitment here in a couple weeks or tomorrow, depending on if your school started yet. Or that can look like something happening in the middle of March. And so, as recruitment leaders within your chapter, really getting around this mindset of understanding that every single day we are going out and building relationship with individuals, no matter what. We're not restricting ourselves to just a couple weeks in either the fall or the spring. What I can tell you, and I know what Josh and Sam can tell you as well, is that the chapters that really embrace this 365 recruitment idea, that really take on this, we are building relationships constantly, have a better result when it comes to the individuals that they're finding, the amount of individuals that they're finding, the ability to really have the chapter think about recruitment in a different way. And so I really, really encourage you all to think about, is my chapter every single day doing something that's allowing for us to is setting us up to be successful when it comes to recruiting new members. I always relate this back to like college sports recruiting, right? Some of those best college recruiters, when we're thinking about bringing in the new class of, football guys or basketball guys or baseball guys, they are constantly building relationship every single day within the constructs of what they can do. But every single day they're building relationships and they're bringing in new guys constantly, whether that's bringing them in verbal offers or commitments, or they're bringing them in to just start the conversation. They're not waiting until National Signing Day or 2 weeks before National Signing Day, in this case, bid day, to start those conversations. They're starting them early, they're having them often, and they're staying on top of it 365 days of the year. So very, very, very important to having a successful recruitment, and something that you will continue to hear our staff and headquarters talk about is this year-long, year-round 365 recruitment effort. So that's tactic number one. So with that in mind, I think we'll also kind of play into the rest of these 9 tactics as we're moving forward. Tactic number two is the utilization of a recruitment team. you have to, one, have a recruitment team, but two, you have to be able to effectively and efficiently utilize that team around you. You are one person. You might be the VP of recruitment, you might be the assistant to the VP of recruitment, you might be on the just the recruitment committee, you might just be a general member, right, who is interested in helping recruitment of your chapter. Those are all amazing things, but you are just one person, and recruitment is not just a one person job. It takes an entire team, ideally an entire chapter, to be as successful as you possibly can be. In this case, we're talking about how are we utilizing our recruitment team to the best of our ability. So, one, we have to create a recruitment team. If you're the VP of recruitment, you have to now start, if you haven't already, thinking about who is on that team. Who are my recruitment chairs? Who's on my recruitment committee? Who needs to be in those weekly recruitment meetings? And if you haven't set up weekly recruitment team meetings, do that right after this call. Find a time where you and your recruitment committee are meeting every single week to talk about recruitment in depth. What is our strategy? What's our next, what are the next things we need to do? Who's doing what? And then figuring out how we're utilizing each other to the best of our ability. And so, some big practices that I've seen to be super successful and how chapters have utilized their recruitment teams to the best of their ability. One, they are very clear on who is doing what and setting deadlines for when those things that those individuals on the team are supposed to do are supposed to be met, right? So if Josh, Sam, and I are a recruitment team and I'm the VP of recruitment, I am telling Josh and Sam, great, we have a list of 100 potential new members going into this semester. Each of us are going to get roughly 30 to 40 new members, and by next Friday, we need to each have either texted, called, reached out to our 30 to 40 individuals and have updated our tracking sheet, our chapter builder, our Google Doc, whatever you're using to track the potential new members, right? The DU portal, if you're using that. So we're utilizing that team to help take what would be a big 100 name list for one individual, myself, and I'm breaking that up into three, four, five different individuals. So now it's a little bit more manageable for us to do that outreach. There's somebody who's really great at social media, right? Between Josh, Sam, and I know that like Josh is probably not the best person for social media, but Sam is, right? And that's not a knock on Josh at all. It just means that I know that I can utilize Sam in a lot better way to post on social media, to do that outreach, to engage. So I need to utilize him on my team to do that, to be engaging on social media. Josh, I know Josh is going to be great with event logistics, right? So Josh is my guy who's going to figure out where we're having this event. Are rooms reserved? Is the food ordered? Are all the things happening? And I'm utilizing the recruitment team. So all the things that we're having to worry about as the VPs of recruitment on this call, we are able to break that up and delegate and effectively utilize that team in the right way. Um, so that is a huge, huge piece. I have seen chapters who don't utilize a team at all, just get overwhelmed and they just say it's too much and I just can't recruit to the level that I need to because I'm the only person, right? I've seen other chapters just say I have an entire team of 6 or 7 guys. Everyone has their defined role and responsibility. We meet every Wednesday at 6 p.m. at the chapter house or on campus, and they're just cruising through, right? And they're saying, man, we're able to utilize each other and able to really allow for our strengths to come out because we're doing a great job of utilizing us as a recruitment team and allowing for that to happen. So again, incredibly important that you all are one creating the team, but more important that you're utilizing the team in the right way. If there are any questions about, hey, how can I utilize my team? Reach out to myself, reach out to Josh, reach out to Sam. Let's talk about what that looks like for your chapter. But you have to really think about right now, how am I utilizing that? And we'll talk about in the next couple sessions, who is your team and what are we doing with each of those members of the team to ensure that we're getting the most out of those who are in those positions and helping there. If you have any questions, Stephen, go ahead and either wait. At the very end, we'll have some time for questions, or if you want to throw them in the chat, you can go ahead and do that, and we'll make sure that we get to those at some point, at the end of the night. All right. So that's tactic two. Tactic one, 365 recruitment. We're constantly thinking about it. What are we doing every single day? Tactic number two, how are we utilizing our recruitment team to allow for us to be the best we can and be the most successful in our recruitment? Tactic number three, clear roles and responsibilities. And this is not just clear roles and responsibilities for those who are on the recruitment team. I'm going to say that again. This is not just clear roles and responsibilities for those on the recruitment team. These are clear roles and responsibilities for every single member of the chapter and what they can do to help push recruitment forward and allow for the chapter to be successful. I talk about this all the time when I have recruitment coaching calls. We talk about what is the chapter doing, what's the engagement level of the chapter, and it varies, right? The chapter is incredibly engaged with recruitment. Awesome. There's other chapters we struggle with engagement, and that's pretty common, right? Well, what this allows for us to do is you're able to sit down and really think about what's each member's role and responsibility when it comes to the larger picture of recruitment. And so it's up to you all as the VPs of recruitment and your recruitment team to think about where everyone fits in within the grand scheme of your strategy and your plan when we think about how we're going to go be successful. So what does this mean and what does this look like? What this looks like is there you can break it up, right? So we can look at this and say, hey, this pocket of 10 guys right here within the chapter, their role and their responsibility is to show up and be a great representation of Delta Upsilon, right? And I need to have be very clear in that, right? I need you to show up. I need you to engage with potential new members. I need you to have fun at events. And that's really what I'm expecting of you as a member, right? Not showing up at all is not going to fly, right? We need individuals to show up and to engage potential new members during recruitment events. This other group of individuals, we may say, hey, these 10 guys are our strongest guys in the chapter that can talk to anyone who walks through the door and build a relationship. So I'm going to go talk to those individuals and say, hey, look, not only do I need you to show up, be engaged, have engaging conversations, but I may turn to you to have some of those more one-on-one relationship building or to hold those conversations with certain potential new members, right? Those are the guys who can go talk to somebody for 2 hours. They can take somebody to lunch. They can take somebody to dinner and really dive into building that authentic connection with a potential new member. There may be some guys within the chapter who you say, oh my gosh, they could get anyone to walk through the door, and I just need them out there promoting events, promoting Delta Upsilon, getting people interested. And then once they're interested, I go give them to these other 10 guys who are going to hold that conversation. And so your um, what that looks like is going to be different depending on the chapter. A great example is when I was vice president of recruitment, I had individuals, I had about two or three guys who could go out and just get anyone to come to any event. And so I talked to them, hey, I need you to go into the residence halls. I need you to go to the gym. I need you to go to class and just talk about DU, talk about what we're doing, talk about our upcoming events, get people just excited to show up, right? Get their number, start talking to them, get them to the actual event or get them to the thing that we're doing. Once they were there, I then had another group of guys who knew, okay, great, this is my time to shine. I may not be outwardly wanting to get individuals to be there, but once I have somebody in front of me, I could talk forever with them. And that allowed for us to be very clear and everyone knew exactly what they were doing. If we are just saying, hey, show up to recruitment, recruitment's important, we need to grow the chapter, that's not going to be as successful as defining and being very clear on what everyone's role and responsibility is. They're going to ask why. Why do I need to be here? Why do I need to be engaged? Isn't that your job, Josh, as the vice president of recruitment, to go recruit all these guys? Well, yeah, he's leading that, but it's not just his role and his job solely. It's everyone's job to do that. Hey, isn't it just the recruitment team's job? Yeah, we take on a lot of the burden in ensuring that everything's set up for recruitment, but we also need other guys within the chapter to do certain things and have certain roles and have certain responsibilities in order for us to create this environment that's going to allow for potential new members to feel like they can be a part of this chapter. Going back to what we talked about in that first slide, allowing for them to feel like they're going to join. So this is an incredibly important piece to your overall plan and strategy and thinking about what tactics can I use to be successful. being very clear in those roles and responsibilities, not just saying, hey, we need to show up because it's recruitment. We need to say, hey, we need to show up because it's recruitment, and here's exactly what I need you to do, and here's why it's important, and here's why it's going to allow for us to be successful as a chapter. All right, Josh and Sam, have we got any questions? I think I see one. You can pause here. Stephen, how do we deal with having a very small chapter and thus a small pool of individuals to help with recruitment? How can we still get a large, high quality new member season? Stephen, that's a great question, right? Like, how do these smaller chapters um, work with it? We can work again one on one. I know we've had some conversations. I think it's really finding those individuals who are really bought in, right? And sometimes your best recruitment teams are actually smaller recruitment teams, right? And I don't know, Josh or Sam, if you have any pieces there, probably experience of like, look, recruitment teams don't necessarily need to be 10 to 11 individuals. If they are, amazing. But they can be, two, three, four guys, as long as you're all bought in and as long as you're very clear on what that looks like, you can do a lot with that smaller recruitment team. It's just going to look a little bit different, right? And some guys may take on a little bit more, and that's okay. Just being very clear in what that looks like is going to be incredibly helpful. But if you have four guys who are really bought in to being this recruitment team and being able to utilize each other's skills in the right way, that's sometimes better than having 10 guys who are somewhat bought in or just kind of wanting this leadership position, whatever that looks like there. So I would really just think about, okay, who are those guys that are on my recruitment team, and how do I best utilize their skills, even if it's not to the level of, or we have the ability to have a larger team there. Awesome. Jackson, what would you say are some essential strategies in swaying kids who are in between other houses? Yeah, Jackson, that's a great question. I think it's all about creating that environment. And we'll talk a little bit about here in a couple of the other tactics that probably are going to speak to this question. But I think first and I think biggest thing is building and doing all that you can to build the best relationship um, that you possibly can be. And so that's really, really going to allow for us to be at the next level, right? And so if somebody's in between two different chapters and they're not too sure what's going on, what I can do is I can only do so much. And what I need to do is build the relationship and ensure that they're understanding, hey, this is a place that you belong. This is a place that we're really striving to allow for you to be successful. And at the end of the day, if that relationship takes and they see that themselves, they're going to join DU. If they don't, they're going to potentially join another chapter, and that's okay, right? That just is what it is at that level. But we'll hear in a couple talk about some things that I think you can do very strategically to build those relationships there. So great question, Jackson. Um, so before we go into tactic four, want to just remind everyone again to put your name and your on in the chapter in which you're from. Remember, this is serious topic, high level pieces, and so we want to make sure everyone's engaged at a high level there. So please make sure that you're putting your actual chapter in which you're from in that name there, ensuring that we're really focused and bought in to this Amplified DU session. All right, tactic number four, huge outreach, outreach, outreach. It's great if you guys want to have all these cool events. It's great if you all have t-shirts. It's great if you all have social media posts. If we're not doing outreach and we're not connecting with individuals the way that we need to be connecting with individuals, then it doesn't matter all the other things that we do. I mean, it does matter, but that means we're not actually able to build those relationships the way that we need to, right? And so you can say, hey, I've got 10 guys who are really interested, and I'm going to do no more other outreach, right? Or I'm just going to post this social media post and guys are just going to show up to my event. That's not going to work in terms of how do I be the most successful. If I have an event and I have 100 guys on a names list with 100 phone numbers, you best believe I am texting 100 guys about that event, inviting them to that event individually, right? And if I have a recruitment team and I'm utilizing them, I'm able to break that down in a way that's much more feasible when it relates to everything else that you all have going on. This means that you're getting on social media and you're DMing guys in a class of 2028, 2029 page. You're doing that outreach in terms of going out and tabling on campus if that's an opportunity. You're doing that outreach if there is a student org fair on campus. Well, no other fraternity participates in the student org fair. Well, DU is going to participate in the student org fair because we could go get 50 more names just out of that student org fair. That's the outreach that we're doing. Are we talking to individuals that we know, sorority women, friends, club leaders, even the fraternity and sorority life office, the office of admissions people we may have relationships with, and saying, hey, we're in the midst of recruitment. We're constantly looking for individuals who fit these different areas. Um, and so that allows for us to be, we want individuals and we want to find those individuals. Do you have any recommendations? That's all part of the outreach piece. So we constantly have to be thinking about what that outreach piece is. We have to constantly be doing that outreach because that's going to allow for us to find those individuals. I'll give you, really a statistic I give everyone. For every one person who's going to join, more or less, you're going to need about 10 names that you've reached out to, right? So if we're thinking, hey, this spring, we're going to want to recruit 10 guys. Well, I'm going to need at minimum 100 different P&Ms that I'm reaching out to have that even potential of getting those 10 individuals, if not more. So the more outreach you're going to do, the more opportunity you're going to find. Again, the amount and the amount of individuals you're wanting, but also the quality of individuals you're wanting as well. Tactic number five, and I think Jackson, this may answer those pieces or one of those strategies that's going to allow for kind of that sway, as we say, or allow for somebody to say, hey, I want to go with Delta Upsilon instead of another organization. It's this mix of formal and informal engagement. And this is incredibly important because I think sometimes chapters get so focused on these formal events that we're having during a formal recruitment week that sometimes and that maybe, and a lot of times it's not intentional, they're just not thinking about what else are we doing informally that are engaging and building relationships, right? So yes, you can have these formal events, which are awesome. I want to have my dodgeball event. I want to have my, you know, Wing Wednesday event. I want to have our alumni cookout that we have every year. I want to have X event and that formal event from 6 to 9 at night that we do every single year, that this new event idea that we have. That's awesome. And that's a great way to engage a lot of P&Ms at a large level, see the chapter at a large level, have them over at the chapter house, all of those pieces. And that's going to allow to build some relationship there. What you also need to be doing is a lot of those informal engagement opportunities as well, right? And this is where a lot of 365 recruitment comes into play, but this is just a lot of where I think chapters who are able to do this well see a lot of benefit from it, right? So if I have an event on Tuesday night, and that is a Taco Tuesday night, and the alums come and we're having some good discussion. On Wednesday, I'm going to be having conversations on, hey, Josh, Sam, Jackson, Mitchell, do you want to go to lunch tomorrow, right? Loved having you at this event. I've got, I have no class from 12 to 2. Do you want to grab some lunch and kind of hang out a little bit more, right? Great. Awesome. Now I'm having this informal engagement and this connection with Mitchell and Jackson, who are P&Ms who are interested in Delta Upsilon, and I'm not waiting until our next event on Thursday to see him again or see them again, right? So it's incredibly important there to have that informal engagement mixed with this formal engagement because it's utilizing and really taking advantage of all that time together, right? I have these conversations time and time again with chapters who said, hey, I had, these 3 guys who are incredibly interested. They showed up to each of our event, but they chose another chapter when it came to bid day. Well, when you start talking a little bit more, you realize, hey, they only showed up at those events. You weren't engaging them outside of those events. We were just, we weren't doing really anything else. And that didn't necessarily allow for the best relationship and connection that they could have had with the chapter. When in reality, even if it was a couple texts, or if it was going to the gym, or if it was inviting a P&M to come play basketball with you, or if it was taking a peanut out to lunch or dinner or coffee, that's going to enhance their engagement. It's going to enhance their ability to say, hey, I feel like I really belong because I'm not only showing up at these events with all these other P&Ms, but Josh is telling me, hey, I want to also engage with you outside of these formal events, and that's going to make me feel a lot better. So that's a key piece that I think within your recruitment planning, and as you all are thinking about your strategy or, reimagining or revamping what your strategy looks like as we're going into the spring, thinking about what's that good mix, what are we doing in terms of formal events, formal engagement, informal engagement, and how are we allowing for us to take advantage of all of that throughout our time before we extend a bid or before we officially close recruitment in terms of going to the new member process, because again, recruitment continues to happen after even the new member process starts, if we're looking ahead to summer and the fall. Some examples I've seen chapters do that allows for this kind of engagement piece that they build in. I've seen chapters who will have events throughout the week, and then Friday is very focused, and the weekend is very focused on taking potential new members out to dinner or out to lunch. So there's that informal aspect to it. They find the right guys, or maybe they want to take that P&M. They've had this good conversation with some P&Ms, and they want to take it to that next level and have some different conversations there. They have it that way. I've seen groups, yeah, just say, hey, we have this event, but they just continue to text that guy no matter what, or they're inviting them to something else. So there's a lot of ways to approach what that engagement looks like, but it's incredibly important for the success of your chapter recruitment wise to think about what those formal and informal engagement opportunities look like. Tactic number six, asking the right questions. This is huge, right? And I think a lot of chapters, think about, what are those questions that we want to ask? And sometimes when we think about fraternity recruitment, we kind of get into what every other chapter might be asking. Hey, where are you from? What do you like to do? What are you doing here? Where do you live? Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? Which are all valid questions, right? But there is a piece to the question asking that really allows for us to think about what questions are we asking that's going to elicit some really good conversation with the potential new member that we have. Right. So yes, I want to know about, why are you interested in fraternity? What are the things you're looking for? But I even want to dive a little bit deeper. Hey, are you involved on campus? And if so, like what are some of those things that you want to be involved with on campus? Right. What are some things that in the next 40 years, in the next 3 years, you're really looking to do while you're here at Oregon, while you're here at Miami, while you're here at Syracuse, right? And really listen to those responses and understand, okay, what is that P&M actually wanting out of this experience, right? They may say, hey, I really want to get more involved in the community. I want to have connections, right? I want to engage with more alumni. I want to get more leadership opportunities. So what I'm doing in asking these questions and asking the right ones is I'm gathering a lot of information that's allowing for me then to know exactly how I'm going to follow up with that individual. There's some resources towards the end of this session, and some links there, and those will also be shared out. Via email when we share out the recording of this session that will take you to different websites that will have resources in terms of what kind of questions can I ask. I think the biggest piece here too is helping your chapter understand what questions they can ask. Obviously, you all might feel really comfortable asking questions. It might feel really comfortable having conversation there. The biggest piece is our other chapter members having that same comfortability or knowing what questions to ask as well. So that's also another piece there is, you may realize, hey, I need to create a list of here are questions you can ask a P&M if you're in a place where I need some more conversation there. Really good opportunity for you to create that. There are some lists and resources there for you. But again, going back to why does this make it, why are we talking about this from a successful recruitment tactic standpoint? Because what the right question does is it creates really, really it creates intentionality behind the information that you're getting, but also showing that you're interested in learning more about that potential new member. And sometimes that can make all the difference from, hey, I'll go to this recruitment event compared to this other chapter's recruitment event, and DU was really interested in me in different ways in terms of the questions that they were asking rather than the typical questions that I'm getting at every event that I'm going to for every fraternity. So sometimes even that can make all the difference in terms of how that individual feels, and maybe even say, hey, look, Josh is asking me these questions and it really felt like they were curious about it and they wanted to see what I was doing and they were curious about how I could excel within the chapter or within the fraternity. I want to learn more about that experience, and I'm actually interested even more about Delta Upsilon simply because Josh had the right questions, he was asking me the right things, and he was really listening to what my responses were. And that goes into tactic number 7 is knowing what you have to offer. Um, what's really key about this is you have to be very clear internally and within the chapter to know what are those things that you all can share with a potential new member that's going to kind of hit the things that they might be looking for. And so this is big on expansion. Josh, Sam, and I can all tell you this, right? Like Delta Upsilon has a ton to offer, right? Both in terms of brotherhood, what we do on campuses, how active we are within intramurals, other clubs, sports, leadership opportunities, educational programs, advisor support, alumni connections, career opportunities, right? All of those things the fraternity has to offer. Obviously, chapters have certain things they can offer as well. And so knowing what we have to offer allows for you to say, great, as I'm learning more about a potential new member, as I'm building the relationship, I can now tailor a lot of what I'm responding to when it comes to questions or what this potential new member is looking for based off what I know we offer as both a fraternity and a chapter instead of using 3 to 5 minutes on trying to sales pitch everything that we offer as an organization. And Josh might say, hey, none of that necessarily interests me. Or, you talked a lot about community service. And it's not that I'm not interested in community service, but I wanted to hear more about educational programming opportunities. But Josh really didn't talk about that, right? He may have said, hey, we have that. But let me talk to you more about community service, right? Again, not that I'm not interested in community service. I just want to hear more about educational programming opportunities. So if Josh is one, going back to tactic 6, asking the right questions, and then Josh knows that what he has to offer, Josh can now respond and say, hey, look, we have all these things to offer, but I really hear you talking about wanting to go to different programs and wanting to grow as a leader and grow as an individual. Let me talk to you about our Emerging Leaders program that we have twice a year. Let me talk about Leadership Institute. Let me talk to you about the Building Better Men retreat that we do and we bring alumni in and they have an alumni panel, but then we also have a day-long brotherhood retreat along with that, right? Now I feel like Josh listened to what I had. I now know what Delta Upsilon has to offer based off what Josh is telling me. Now I'm way more interested in the organization and the fraternity because it feels very genuine, very authentic, and it feels like I was actually being listened to and have those opportunities there, right? So again, this is incredibly successful way to build those authentic and genuine relationships because I know exactly what we can offer as an organization, right? So different ways to do this, right? Think about what are the top 10 things that Delta Upsilon on your campus can offer a potential new member, right? What are the top 10 things that Delta Upsilon as a whole can offer a potential new member? Thinking about, hey, if an individual is interested and then breaking that down even further, right? Hey, we offer alumni, a huge alumni network. Great. So if a potential new member, talks about his desire to connect with more alums, awesome. We can tie that directly back to, you know, the number 2 thing we listed, which is alumni connections and the fact that we have X amount of alumni and we have a full alumni advisory board and all these pieces, right? If somebody says, hey, I'm really focused on academics and I want a place that's really going to help me excel academically, great. We know that one of our top 10 things is that we are above the all men's average on campus, and we have a really robust academic program that's helping guys study and excel within their majors. Great, I can share that with an individual if that's getting brought up in conversation. And so again, it's allowing for us to tailor what that conversation looks like a little bit more to build those authentic relationships. Everyone is going to say, right? Like we've all been through recruitment. Everyone's going to say we have brotherhood. Everyone's going to say we participate in intramurals. Everyone's going to say we have alumni. That is true for every fraternity. It's really about specifically what DU has to offer and your chapter has to offer, and then obviously relating that back to what the P&M is looking for in a fraternal experience, right? And so this happens on expansion all the time. Sam and I are dealing with this, and Josh at Washington, Sam at Western Colorado on a couple of our recent expansions, is we have to really listen, ask the right questions, and know what are we offering. So during our meetings with guys, we can tie all of that back to what they're wanting, and that is incredibly helpful to how we're having those conversations. So again, know what you have to offer, break that down. If you're, struggling with what that looks like within the chapter, talk to your recruitment team, reach out to one of us, so we can help you think through what that looks like. And then if you're thinking about, well, how do I talk about that to a potential member? That's what we're here for. We want to help you have those conversations, and allow for you to be successful in knowing what you can talk about and what you can share with a P&M. Tactic number 8 is intentional follow-up. Thanks, Stephen. What if our chapter has to offer historically has appealed to a very niche P&M audience? Um, Stephen, I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, historically you all, have kind of a group that you're looking at and that allows for that to happen. I think there's probably more that you have to offer. It's really just thinking about and diving into what that looks like, right? And diving into further, hey, yeah, we offer a strong brotherhood, but what does that actually look like as we dive deeper into what we actually do as a chapter? I'd be happy. I know Josh or Sam would be happy to connect with you offline in terms of kind of what that could look like specifically for your chapter and help you create that kind of top 10 list there. So we'll make note of that and we'll reach out to you separately so we can have some of those conversations on what that looks like because it's great. I think a lot of times when chapters have kind of these pockets, but I do think that there's a lot of times chapters just need to have that conversation. Um, need to have that conversation that they're going to see, hey, we actually have a lot more to offer to a larger variety of individuals than just what we think is this pocket of individuals we've always appealed to. Tactic number 8 is intentional follow-up. Another one that can make all the difference in terms of whether an individual joins an organization or joins your chapter or not. I've seen it time and time again. I know Sam has seen it. I know Josh has seen it. I know advisors have seen it. Alums have seen it. You may have seen it. Individuals and chapters that are intentional and strategic about how they're following up with the potential new member sometimes can make all the difference in whether or not an individual joins the organization. What does that mean? I think a lot of the times we can say, hey, we have this guy who's super interested. He's shown up to every event. We had lunch with him. Bid days in a couple days. We're just going to kind of wait and see, and hopefully he joins. I'm pretty sure he will. Bid day comes around, and ultimately that individual joins somewhere else. And you kind of go, man, what happened? I thought, we had this really good connection. You probably did. That's probably valid that you did and probably true. But what you might have been missing was asking and what you might have been missing was following up with that individual to really see, hey man, we're super interested in you, right? We'd love for you to join. We can definitely see you being a great member of the organization. What questions, have we not answered? What other things are on your mind? Is there anything that we haven't talked about that would really help make your decision in joining Delta Upsilon a lot easier, right? Are there any hesitations, reservations about things? Hey, thanks for showing up to this event, right? Was there anything that, that we talked about that maybe we wanted to go a little bit further into, right? So that follow-up can make all the difference because sometimes P&Ms can be hesitant to do that outreach. And so we, as the recruiters, need to actually be the ones following up with those individuals. So it's really key in that piece. The intentional follow-up can also be after events, right? We need to, if I know that I have these 10 guys who showed up to an event, that night or that next day, I better be sending them a message to say, hey man, it was great seeing you at the event. It was really great to talk to you about X, or it was really, Josh said he had a great time talking with you about, whatever. Would love to see you at our next event. Here it is. Or, we're grabbing lunch today as a chapter. Would love for you to be there. Are you available? Right. That's an intentional follow-up piece there, right? We don't want to leave it at, hey, I saw you at this event. I told him at the very end when the next event was. Hopefully he shows up. We need to be intentional about what that looks like. It also goes into following up with individuals who said, "Hey, I'm going to be at this event tonight," or "I'm going to be there," or "I can't make it." Well, how am I following up with that individual? If Josh tells me he's going to come to the event, I'm excited. Josh doesn't come to the event. Hey, Josh, sorry I missed you at the event. Hopefully everything's okay. Would love to invite you to the next event, right? We're having here, right? And Josh may come back and say, "Hey, man, totally sorry I missed it." Or Josh may come back and say, "Hey, really appreciate it, but I'm not necessarily interested in DU." Both are totally valid responses. We just need to make sure that we're following up on those. And that's going to allow for us to continue to build that relationship and have those conversations. And so, always, always, always follow up with each of your potential new members after an event, right before bid day if you can, as the week's going on or as the time's going on, because it can make all the difference. I have been on enough expansions, I've done enough recruitment where there are a handful of guys who that follow-up piece was actually the reason why they made their decision to join the chapter, because we addressed a finance issue, we addressed a time management issue, we addressed something that they thought was one way about the chapter, but it was really something else. And we were able to address it and then move forward. And if it wasn't for that, they may have said, "No, I don't think DU is necessarily the place for me, or maybe fraternity is not for me." So always follow up with every single individual in the right way. And follow up can get you a lot of information, right? This can allow for you to know, like, are guys interested? Are they not? Where do I need to focus my energy? If a certain individual is talking about in my follow-up some finance concerns, great. Do I need to bring in the VP of finance? If a certain individual is talking about or worried about parent concerns, great. Are there resources we can send the parents? I've worked with advisory groups that have said, "Hey, if parents are worried, we've let the chapter know that we'd be happy to make a phone call to the parent just to talk through what that looks like for them." And so that can also be a thing if that's something alums and advisors are open to. It can just give you a lot of information. And if you're not following up, you don't know that. So again, in order to be successful, this is incredibly key piece to the entire recruitment picture. Tactic number 9 is be transparent. If you are not sharing expectations of being a member, if you're not sharing financial expectations, time management expectations, academic expectations, the new member process expectations, then you are not going to be successful when it comes to not only bringing in individuals, but also getting those individuals to become initiated members of the organization, which is incredibly key, right? Like, you could go recruit 20 guys this spring, and if you're only initiating 8, there's an issue there, right? In a lot of different ways. And that might be, hey, we just weren't transparent enough, right? And so they came in and they thought finances were this, or we didn't talk about dues, or we didn't talk about a live-in requirement. They learned about that the second week, and then they said, "Wait a minute, I can't do that," or "That's not something that interests me." You need to just be as transparent as possible, right? And some of that is what it is, right? Here is the cost it is to be a part of a fraternity. Let's talk about that if that's going to be a potential issue. Here is the time it takes. To be involved with the organization. Here is the vision we have, maybe as a smaller chapter, right? And here's where we see you fitting into that. Great, you saw something or you heard something. Let's talk about what that looks like for us. Guys want to. I have found that individuals can see through all the BS pretty quickly, and they don't like to be bait and switched. I know I don't want to be bait and switched. I know probably all 25 of us on this call don't want to be bait and switched. And so, as if we can keep it transparent, it makes everything so much easier moving forward, and it allows for us to address things in the moment rather than midway through a new member process, and now all of a sudden this individual is finding out something that should have been addressed 4 weeks ago during recruitment is now being addressed now, and now that individual is dropping because you weren't transparent with them, or they thought something different based off what they were being told. So Really think about what that looks like. Have those open and honest conversations. I know sometimes those are really hard depending on what those conversations are. Sometimes it's really hard to know that some of the transparency and information and expectations are just not going to work for somebody that you want to have be part of the chapter, and you just can't work that out. I'd rather know that before I go into a new member process than midway through a new member process, right? I'd rather know if an individual we need to get put them on a payment plan before he accepts his bid than the day before dues is due and he's not comfortable talking about it, and so now we're having issues with him paying, right? And so all of those things, if you do that during the recruitment process and talking about what that looks like, it's going to help you in the long run, and it's going to be successful, and guys are going to appreciate that transparency. It's also going to help you know who's in, who's out, right? Like if you're recruiting somebody and you're transparent about what that looks like, and the five guys you thought were incredibly interested learn about the fact that it's going to cost X amount of money, or there's a live-in requirement, or whatever the case is, and that ultimately just doesn't work. I now know that I don't have those five guys, and now I need to go start thinking about how else I'm going to find those individuals. Again, I'd rather know that then than 2 weeks before initiation, and those five guys all of a sudden drop, and my 10-person new member class is now five people, and I'm initiating five individuals instead of 10 because we didn't have those conversations ahead of time. And so it's incredibly important. Those are great conversations to have informally too, or in an informal setting. They don't necessarily have to be at a certain event. They can informally happen at a dinner, at a lunch, at a breakfast, on campus somewhere, at the chapter house, whatever the case is, off in a corner during an event. So those are great to have there, and it allows for them to know, hey, you're open to having that conversation both ways, and we're setting that expectation now. And the last tactic, and I know it might sound a little cliche, but I truly believe in it, like have fun. Like if you're having fun, if the chapter is having fun, if the chapter is enjoying recruitment, if you're enjoying the process, that's going to allow for a potential new member to feel like they are going to belong within the group, right? If 10 guys are having a blast and P&Ms are seeing that, and they're comparing that to 30 guys who all don't want to be there, you're probably going to have those 10 guys actually have a lot better chance of engaging and bringing those P&Ms with into the chapter, because the P&M is going to see that they're enjoying themselves and they're having a good time, compared to this 30-man group where they might say, hey, do they even like each other? Do I want to be a part of that? Right? So have fun with it. Create events that you would want to go to. Create events that your brothers would want to go to, right? Create events that a P&M would want to say, man, I want to be there, but also be intentional while you're there to have an enjoyable time while you're doing there, right? Talk about what's exciting about the fraternity. Talk about why you join, what fun you're having, right? Advisors, alums, if you're on this call, like talk about your experience, how much, you appreciate and have fun working with the individuals. Like those P&Ms want to hear that. We see that again when I'm working with chapters, when we're on expansion. The more we're enjoying it, the more P&Ms are going to enjoy that experience. You hear it all the time where P&Ms are like, "Hey, I just didn't join because it just didn't feel like they were actually liked each other." And some of that sometimes is true, and there's other conversations we need to have. And then there's other P&Ms who said, "Man, these guys were having a blast. I felt like I belonged in this group. I could see myself having fun with these guys. I definitely want to join DU." So again, have fun with it, enjoy it, enjoy talking to guys, enjoy going and playing football, enjoy playing the video games, enjoy going to the football and basketball games or volleyball games. Enjoy all of it, because that's going to the P&Ms are going to see that. Do all the other nine things, right? And be really intentional about all the other nine things. Number 10, you also got to be intentional about, right? And allow for that to be a focal point through the entire recruitment experience. Some additional resources before we get into questions. There's two different spots. Delta Upsilon recruitment resources at deltau.org. recruitment-programming. We have all previous Amplify DU webinars dating back to 2021. So there's different topics there. So you may see something that you want to watch. So I'd highly recommend just looking through that, either yourself, together with your recruitment committee, with your advisor, whoever that might be. There is a recruitment marketing toolkit. So if you have questions about or need some templates to post on social media, we do have that available as well. The other piece is Fired Up recruitment resources. Some of you have maybe worked with Fired Up before on your campuses. They are the company that does Chapter Builder. So if your campus or your chapter uses Chapter Builder, that's all through Fired Up. They have a ton of downloadable resources, tools, and guides, totally free to access, anywhere from questions you can ask to how do I create membership criteria pieces, to many kind of snippets on how do I recruit in certain ways, and what does formal versus informal look like, all of those pieces. So highly recommend checking the Fired Up resources out as well. That's something that, I look at. Pretty consistently just to see what they have, and they're always helpful. They know what they're doing, and they've got a good team there that's creating these resources for chapters to be successful in the growth space. So with that being said, would love to open it up for any questions that folks have. Feel free to put those in the chat, or I think everyone has the ability to go off of mute. So if you want to go off of mute, that's totally fine as well. So I'll give it a couple minutes here, or a couple seconds to see if there's any questions. All right, seeing none, and Josh and Sam, keep an eye out in case somebody does have any. Um, Tactic 9, Dario, great question. Just the title. Yep. Tactic 9 was be transparent. So again, going back to the allowing just the transparency piece there. All right, Stephen, question: what sort of behavior or topics of conversations can kill an event? So I think first off, behavior is just closed-ended questions of any sort, right? If I'm just asking yes or no, or I'm not asking follow-up questions, that's just going to kill a conversation to begin with, right? Like that's not going to get us anywhere. I always steer clear of any conversation that's bad mouthing other organizations, other people, right? That just is going to kill. That's going to turn people off in some way. I also just don't think that's a best practice whatsoever there. If guys are just looking at their phone, or guys are just in the corner, that's clearly going to not be engaging at all. It's not going to build relationship at all. So you want to be aware of if you are at an event and you've got, five chapter brothers who are just in the corner doing their own thing, looking at their phone. You need to nip that in the butt pretty quick. And I think just being cognizant and kind of hearing what those questions are. I think other ones that aren't necessarily going to maybe kill an event or a relationship, but just keeping your ear out on, what questions are being asked by individuals. Are there anything that's being shared by chapter members that just isn't true? Again, it goes back to that transparency piece. So you as the VP of recruitment need to understand everything that's going on. So just being aware of what that looks like is incredibly important. But yeah, if guys are just completely disengaged, they're asking closed-ended questions, they're on their phone, they're not engaging with P&Ms, that's going to completely just hinder any sort of relationship building engagement that you're going to want to have at an event, or even just at a one-on-one interaction there. All right. Last piece. Next session will be next Friday, or next Wednesday, I'm sorry, at 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm sure you all would love to be on a call on a Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, but it will be next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. I will send out an email with the Zoom link, since each Zoom link is different, or each session link is different. Individuals can continue to register. So if you have other guys in your chapter that you want to get these emails and be part of Amplify, please have them register, or obviously you can share the Zoom link there. Any questions that you all have at any point, you all have my email. Feel free to shoot me an email if you want to set up a recruitment coaching call, if you want to set up a virtual recruitment workshop with Sam, Josh, or myself. We are always here to help you guys. We're more than happy to do that. Josh and Sam work with certain chapters on recruitment plan and strategy. Obviously, that will be the focus of the next two sessions. So we are here to help you all. Again, really appreciate everyone's participation tonight. Really hope that you all are now thinking about, how are we utilizing these 10 different successful recruitment tactics? These we will revisit next week in thinking about how are we creating that plan and how are we implementing these tactics as well as other different pieces that are going to allow for that plan to be the most effective and intentional. And again, any questions, any conversation you want to have, anything specific to your chapter, shoot me an email, reach out to Josh, reach out to Sam. We'd be more than happy to help you. But really appreciate your time tonight, guys. Looking forward to next week. Enjoy the rest of your night. And Dakayu Patheka, guys.